Alright, what's up guys? Just going to be doing a quick build overview for the Scourge Arrow Scion that I've been playing for the last week or so. Kind of just going to be quickly covering all the gear options and how you put the build together, what you need, what is optional, things like that. And I'm going to get started right away with the gear. So first things first, it is a Dexterity stacking build. You can see I'm currently sitting at 846 Dex. And we're taking advantage of that with a Shaper Bow with the mod of flat cold damage per 10 Dexterity, and also the Hiri's Demise Quiver, which gives flat damage per each stat, but the most important one, again, being the Dexterity. So, as you may be able to guess just by looking at the bow, it's a specific rolled Shaper Bow that you're going to want a couple mods on. This is not a budget build. You could maybe get it to work if you found a nice bow for cheap, but the bow alone, which is completely necessary, is going to be a little bit expensive probably, because really you want that cold damage per dexterity, you want some form of attack speed and some form of crit chance at the bare minimum, and ideally you would want to also either have the chance to deal double damage like this bow has, or the socketed gems deal 20% more damage, which is a mod from the serrated fossils in Delve. And if you want to craft a bow yourself, the combo that I was using, see if I have them here, I'm not sure. I do. Corroded, serrated, and metallic, which... Hold that off. The serrated gives you more likely to roll attack mods, which is a good thing because all the mods you want are attack mods. And it, again, unlocks that 20% more damage. Corroded blocks all elemental modifiers, so they're gone entirely. Which you would think is bad, but for whatever reason, the cold damage per dexterity actually doesn't count as a elemental modifier. It's only tagged as an attack modifier, so you can get it anyway. And then metallic blocks the physical, so you can't hit anything physical or elemental, but you're more likely to roll attack. And it's not easy, like I said, it's not easy to roll the bow, but that does give you the best chances of hitting something you're going to want to keep. And then, like I said, other than the bow, the quiver, basic. Mine has some random corruption that gives next to nothing extra, but really you just want high attributes, high attack speed on the upgraded quiver. Helmet, I went with a Starkonja's. It has really high dexterity and it's got some life on it. And you can probably find one with an enchant if you can afford that. Otherwise, you could use a Devoto's. It also has high dexterity and it'll make you go a little faster if you want to go high speed. Or maybe craft a nice rare, but really I would say Starkonja's or Devoto's probably the best options. For the amulet, when you're getting started, I would say just grab an Astromenace. It's the cheapest option for what it gives. I got really lucky finding this one, which has damage per dexterity and percent increased attributes. I found it for relatively cheap on PoE trade. But otherwise, Astromenace is going to be pretty hard to beat out overall, just because of the flat stats giving so much with the quiver, and then the dexterity getting all that scaling. One ring is important. You want an Assassin's Mark ring. It's how you get the power charges. Gives you a little bit extra crit for the consistency on freezing enemies. And then if you can, find one like this with some dexterity and some life on top of it. If not, one or the other, really. Other ring. This one happens to be an Elder ring. Doesn't have to be. It just, I bought it and it was Elder. I didn't even realize that, but just dexterity, life, weapon Ellie, whatever you can afford. Gloves. I went with Shaper's Touch. If you want a higher DPS option, you could get a pair of Tomb Fists with double Abyss sockets, but really, Shaper's Touch is tough to beat. This thing is giving over 200 flat life from the dexterity. And since they're pretty damn common, you can... It's not very hard to find a corrupted pair with a nice implicit. Like this one has the base crit to attacks corruption, which works really well. Belt, Cyclopean Coil. I haven't even bothered corrupting it. You could try to corrupt them for one of the percent dexterity rolls. Otherwise, just keep the life. And if you can afford it, Headhunter obviously really good. But if not, just stick with the Cyclopean Coil. Don't need anything else. Boots are just whatever the best rare boots you can get. Again, dexterity. All the rares really you just want dexterity if you can get it. And then life, move speed, maybe some res if you need it. I got 2 tones for some extra resist. Then the body armor, I have a Comb's Heart. Before this, I had a rare Elder chest with the attack base crit modifier, but I felt like I wanted more HP in order to do deeper delving because I was starting to get chunked really hard, and I even got one shot at one point in a zone with no mod, so I just immediately said, okay, time for Combs Heart, time for more HP. But you can use a rare Elder chest, try to get that base attack crit, some life, maybe some dexterity if you want some more damage. I think that covers all the gear. Real quick, the flasks, Quicksilver, Diamond, Basalt, pretty basic stuff. Wise Oak, if you can get your resists balanced, it's really strong. Mine are not balanced because I turned my purities off, but if I turn those back on, you can see we're nice and balanced. My resists aren't capped right now because my Headhunter actually has all res, and I didn't plan it for this one. But then the last flask, they had Ziri's Promise. I like this because you don't really need a life flask. Maybe if you're playing on hardcore, you're going to want one. But really, you don't necessarily need one. And this gives extra leech to help buffer up the Slayer leech from the Ascendancy quicker. But you may also need to use a non-unique to get bleed immunity, unless you can manage to get corrupting blood immune on a jewel, which I'll go over in just a minute, but it's kind of hard to do because of the jewels for the build. That covers all that. As for the passive tree, like I just said, it's a Scion, part Slayer for the extra leech, and then the Culling Strike and all that's nice. Second Ascendancy, I went with Deadeye. Really, you could go with any Ranger, Sub-Ascendancy, they're all good. I like the extra projectile here. It helps with clearing, even though the Pierce doesn't do anything for Scourge Arrow, and the other stats are kind of mediocre, but the extra projectile is really nice. I wouldn't recommend going anything other than Ranger because you want to snag the Ranger start, and because you get 40 flat dex, which is good for a dexterity stacking build to just get some extra dexterity there. But Pathfinder and Raider are also very strong. And then right away you're going to see the holy trinity of unique overpowered jewels right here. With 2 Might of the Meek at the Scion start on the left sides and Unnatural Instinct on the right side. These add a ton of value, both defense and offense, a whole bunch of life, bunch of resists, tons of damage over here, even a bunch of move speed. If you can't afford them because the Unnatural Instinct is rather expensive, you probably wouldn't grab this socket. You would probably still go for this one with the Might of the Meek just because it's nice, and maybe you would have to grab these crit multi-nodes manually and switch the spell damage to this side until you get this jewel. But otherwise, everything would stay the same. And the rest of the tree is pretty much just life. I've got a little bit of mana here because I also needed the strength and the int. Projectile damage, crit damage, cold damage. I took point blank since it helps with single target and the clear speed damage is fine. Vaal Pact, obviously, it's a Slayer base build. You need Vaal Pact. And then, like I said, just crit damage, crit life, everything. Jewel sockets, phase acro, and a Lionized Fall Jewel right here to grab the extra crit from these claw nodes, and also the leech, which is a pretty big source of where I'm getting most of my generic leech and my mana leech, which you need at least a little bit of mana leech to not run out while you're clearing around. And this is where I managed to luckily get a Corrupting Blood Immune Jewel, but like I said, it's kind of tough because there's not really any cheap jewels in the build. The rest of these are just rares, like Abyss jewels or just really nice regular jewels that are kind of hard to get a bunch of and just start slamming corruptions on. But if you can get a Corrupting Blood Immune Jewel, very powerful. I think that covers the tree. And then real quick, the Pantheons, you want Soul of Aracali, as is usual for Slayer type builds. You want the first upgrade from Arachnoxia, gives you recovery rate of life, which is basically 50% multiplier to your leech. And then the other upgrades are really good too once you can get those. My secondary one, I've been using Soul of Shikari for the extra reduced chaos damage and the poison immunity. Since I didn't manage to get any chaos res anywhere, I have negative 60, which also plays into why I have this flask, because it's like the only source of chaos res really for me. But then stacking these two kind of chaos based really helps with the chaos damage. I think that covers the basics of the build. I'm gonna grab a map real quick and run. Let's do a Phoenix. Just roll an easy one to show it off. How the map or the build plays out. And one thing to take note of, if you don't like Scourge Arrow, it's not a build that's necessarily locked into the skill. It's just a cold stacking, dexterity stacking bow character where you could really insert any build you want, any skill you want, and it'll work just fine. And the dexterity stacking bow builds aren't anything new, but they are quite a bit easier to get powered up really hard this league thanks to the Delve fossil crafting. But like you can see, it's not the fastest mapping by any means, but it does. Scourge Arrow gives a really nice balance between map speed and boss killing ability, which you'll see in a minute when I get to the Phoenix Guardian here. The map speed obviously picks way up if you are able to get your hands on a Headhunter. But that's just a Headhunter thing, not so much a thing of this build. You can see the boss just kind of gets chunked down with every single shot.
This is the
and taken out pretty quickly.
That stretches.
Yeah, that may have dragged on a little bit longer than I intended it to, but that about covers the build. So hope you guys enjoyed the video, found it helpful, and can get a Dex bow character started on your own. Thanks guys for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Later.